So we are doing Mishnah 5, which is continuing with, we had the two sages, Yossi ben Yoezer and Yossi ben Yochanan ish Tzreda. And last time we talked about Yossi ben Yoezer, we talked about welcoming sages into your home. And this time, this Mishnah is dealing with regular people, with poor people. And let me just put it on the screen for a second here. Sorry, it's taking a little longer than I thought. Here we go. So the Mishnah says as follows. This is a long Mishnah. We're going to just do the first part. Yosei ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim Omer. Yosei ben Yochanan, a man of Yerushalayim, so that's where he came from, Jerusalem. He said, Yehei veischa pasuach lirvacha. Let your house be open wide. Lirvacha could mean a couple of other things, but essentially it means to widen. V'yihiu aniyim b'nei veisecha, and the poor shall be from your household. And then the rest of the Mishnah talks about talking about discussion with your wife, with women, how you just on how much you talk. We'll save that for tomorrow. Right now we'll worry about the poor. And this Mishnah, if you remember, we had the Mishnah with the three pillars. We had Torah, Avoda, and Gemilat Chasodim. We had some other discussions about Torah. This one is actually talking about the idea of doing chesed, dealing with the poor. So this idea of letting your house open wide. So one of the ideas expressed is we just been last few weeks we read about Avraham and Yitzchak, and one of the things, of course, Avraham was known for was that Avraham was the paradigm of chesed, and the Midrash tells us that he had it when he parked his house, when he made his tents, he made it in a way where he'd sort of be at a crossroads, that wherever people, whatever direction people were coming from, they would pass him by, and he had openings on all sides. So he was welcoming for guests on all sides. And one of the ideas, your house should be open wide, is that people should be able to access your house. I don't know if it's reasonable to assume that everybody's going to have a house with the entrances on all four sides, especially that are open to streets. It's pretty hard to have that. On the other hand, sometimes you have a house, people have a house that by the time you get to the door, you had to take a hike, or maybe even the actual doorway is off to the side somewhere. So don't make it so difficult for people to come into your house is one idea. And this Mishnah of telling for the poor is saying, don't be so picky about everyone who's coming to your house. I'm only going to have the sages. I'm only going to have the special people. No, you should have regular people as well. Everybody should be welcome in your house. And one of the ideas also is to be accessible. Now, again, societies have changed, but you still have in communities where people are passing through. So, for example, there are many people come certainly from Israel, sometimes from other cities to raise funds, and those people need a place to stay or need places to eat. So, in many of the cities where you have large Jewish communities, there are no people who are known. If you need a place to stay, you go to that person, and so it's good for us to be those people as well, that if someone who's traveling knows, they can stop here. In fact, I remember when I was years ago, this is a long time ago, I was about 18 or 19 or something at the time, and I went to London with my brother on the way home from Israel, and we actually got stuck there for Shabbos, and we stayed in this Jewish inn, whatever it was, but turned out there was someone in the neighborhood who was a wealthy man, but he invited every single person who was passing through, anybody who was in the neighborhood that Shabbos, every Shabbos, he had an open table. He had like 40 people at his meals for Shabbos every single week. And there are numerous people around the world like that who do that in other cities, but also especially in Israel, where anybody who needs a meal, they know they can go to this person. So that, of course, is an ideal. Not all of us can do that, both financial reasons and physical, personal reasons, but that's an ideal. Some people also have what's called a gamach, where people who are available. I mean, even setting up something like the kosher food bank really could to somewhat fall under this category as well. But if you're talking about your personal house, another example is when we were in Muncie visiting our daughter. It goes back about a year or so ago. It's in the summer, and we were going to the park, and it was a house right next to the park, and they had a cooler of cold water bottles out that anybody with a big sign, take. So saying it was a hot day. Anybody who wants a drink, take a water bottle. So this kind of thing is really under this category here of opening your house for, doesn't have to be people who are poor, but anyone who's in need as well in terms of providing for them. So and another thing about the poor is it doesn't have to be necessarily financially poor. It could be anything that someone else is lacking. That if there are a lot of things that don't necessarily limit themselves to finances. Someone needs something, you be available to, if you can be the one to provide it, that's a great thing. Then it tells us to treat the poor as members of your household. And so one of the explanations is in terms of hiring someone. You need first, okay, back in the day there was such a thing as slaves, but it's actually telling you rather than buy a slave, because it's not, we don't do that, but back in the day when people don't hire a poor person, a poor Jewish person, spend extra money, and that's a much better thing to do. But even now, hire somebody who is in need as opposed to someone who's less in need. And certainly, if it's one of our own and one of our brethren, certainly hire one of our own people who's in need rather than somebody else. And that goes into this category as well as making them part of your household. Also about how you treat people. So someone's coming as your guest, especially if someone who's poor, and actually we have. I think we may have mentioned this in other occasions. So someone's coming to raise money. Someone's in need, and they come to your house. So besides giving them a donation, offer them food, offer them a drink. That's also part of that. Make them feel welcome into the house. But sometimes you have a case where someone needs a place to stay. They call you up and they say, "Oh, can someone so either eat a meal here or can they stay there?" So we treat them as someone who is just regular. We don't make them feel like, oh, this person is less, this person is poor, this person is a needy person, and we're doing a big favor by allowing them in. Show them a happy face, make them feel at home, and basically make them feel like they could walk around your house. The refrigerator. Here's the refrigerator. You need a drink, you can go take it. I'm not saying you have to go take it yourself, but you should feel comfortable enough to take it yourself, right? That's the goal. Another thing it talks about is that they should be the b'nei veisecha, of your household, meaning is also an idea that, let's say, you have a certain amount, and maybe we have to do with a little bit less in order to provide for the guest. Or maybe someone needs a place to stay, and we have a certain number of rooms. You know what? The kids or someone else is going to have to double up. We'll have to give up one of our rooms and provide, right? We do that for family, I hope. I mean, I know that when we go visit our kids, a lot of time that's what happens is the kids, in certain, depends on who it is, but the kids bunk together and then, they give us a room, right? So we should be doing that for a guest as well. It's not the hardest thing for, certainly for the kids, but even for adults, if necessary, to make themselves a little less comfortable, to make someone else more comfortable. The Sfas Emes talks about someone is coming to your house, and they're a needy person, and they're going to stay there. Show them the place where they're going to stay and where they're going to sleep before you even give them food, so they feel like, oh, I've got a place. I don't feel like I'm just lost in the house. They'll feel more comfortable that way. There's and in general, the idea is to treat those who are poor or less or more needy in a way where they don't feel that, where they feel they're just as equal as everybody else. And one of the famous stories, which a couple of different renditions of the story, but this one is about two Hasidic Rebbes, very famous ones, named Rabbi Elimelech and Rab Zusha, the namesake, and they were very poor, and they used to go from town to town. And one of the stories is that when they were young, so they went to a certain town and nobody hosted them except what's called the Malamed, the poor guy who was the teacher who, didn't have a lot of money, but he took them in and nobody else wanted to take them in. And then years later, when they were more famous and everyone knew who they were and they were the great Hasidic Rebbes, then they came back to that same town. And all of a sudden now everybody was out there. All the big shots wanted to welcome them into their house. So he said to the wealthy man, listen, I tell you, you take care of our horses, and we're going to stay with this other fellow, the Malamed, who took us in, because when we were here years ago, he's the only one who took us in. So obviously, it's not us that you really want to host. It's the grandeur that we have, the grandeur of our, all the horse and carriage that we have. So they can stay with you. That's what you're looking for. But for us as people, he's the only one who took us in, and that's a famous story, but a big truth that we tend to treat people sometimes not for the person they are, but for what they represent. And that's not the attitude. We should be treating people for their own personal personality, not because of their position. And it doesn't make a difference if they're rich or poor, famous or not famous. If there's a person who needs something, we should be providing it for them and making our homes open wide, and welcoming to all. Have a great day, everyone.